Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Start Network. It is definitely evening here in the UK and it's kind of dark, but here we are. We've come to the end. And on behalf of the Start Network team and trustees, we wanted to thank you all for participating in the Start Network's Annual Assembly 2021. We had 3 jam-packed days, 30 learn, build, and explore sessions involving 515 participants. That I think is a record for Start Network. I'll have to check that. But we were all clearly quite adept with virtual convening, because we already did it one time last year. We were quick on the trigger with those mute buttons. We are all adept at filling in Jamboards and being flung in and out of breakout rooms. And although our passwords and our connections sometimes didn't work, and sometimes those mute buttons didn't work, we all felt that this second virtual assembly really did enlarge our participation and enhance our conversations with what is decidedly now a real global membership. As our chair said in his opening remarks, it feels like Start Network's time has come. And as a testament to that, importantly, at our annual general meeting yesterday, we made 2 key decisions about the future of the Start Network. We formally endorsed a governance end state that sees us transitioning to a network of networks. This following a 2-year design and consultation process that involved so many of you. And to be clear, this governance design end state is about how we will govern our network in the future. It is the scaffolding upon which all of these other decisions we will make will hang. Decisions about our membership policy, about our business model, about our financial and operating models. So approval of this end state means the green light for us to explore those other areas and to explore them with you. It will be important to the future success of the network that we start modeling those other areas based on that end state. We also endorsed a model for membership transition, really setting the overall direction, sequence, and pace of how we transfer from being a global membership to one position through country and regional hubs. But the work on that membership transition does not end here. As you have all rightly pointed out to us, there are some important and lingering questions about access to funds, access to services, and fees. It will be really important, again, to answer all of these questions as a membership together. And we have set up a design and consultation process in order to do that. We'll be very, very clear with you as to when those sessions are happening and how you can become involved. And together with our chair, we decided to have a sort of interim AGM report back so that you can track our progress mid-year on how we're doing on the overall design of the future network. But in addition to the AGM, I thought we had some really, really interesting discussions over the course of the 3 days. And Suzanne and I thought we would briefly recap some highlights and takeaways. So I'm just going to ask you, Suzanne, to get started. What were some of the highlights for you?
Okay, yeah, I think there's felt like there's a general sense of excitement in this assembly, and I joined many sessions and I was really impressed and proud of the team and really seeing how their work was being showcased and all their efforts really appreciated. But I also recognised, I think, in attending just how much we had achieved, but how we are always not so great at highlighting our successes. We like to talk about the road ahead. We don't talk so much about the road we've travelled, and I think we need to be better at that. The theme of this assembly was changing mindsets, transforming systems, and I really feel it's achieved its aim for me personally. And some of the big things for me, my big takeaways from this was, and they're all of the sessions I went to, I must say, were fabulous, but these are just some highlights, I guess, of some of the things that I've learned on my journey in this assembly. So first of all, on the risk and accountability, I attended the CEO roundtable and we were introduced to the persona of Amina. And it was a really great opportunity for me to put myself in the shoes of a community member and think about what it must be like to have needs that are not being met, ideas of how I want to deal with them, and having no voice and no forum to be heard. And also, when I was listening to that and thinking about it, it made me think that these systems are not just in the humanitarian aid sector. They exist in so many of the other things that we do in the world in which we live in. And it made me, as somebody who's responsible for risk and compliance, to really think about that and divide how risk and compliance are so often tied together, but actually they really do need to be thought about as 2 distinctly different things. And I think compliance for me has a place, and certainly in key areas of our work around financing and safeguarding, for example. And we should all aspire to operate our businesses in a way that protects the people we serve, and also the resources that we are charged with making sure are there to support the communities. But compliance doesn't control risk. So the idea that this framework that we're looking at, we'll look at accountability in the first instance, and then what that actually means in terms of risk management is so integral to changing the ways in which we operate and the ways in which we fund through the network. And this innovative type of thinking helps us all to keep in mind what this aid system is for, and that is really about supporting communities. So me and Amina have really sort of come together, and it's really changed the way I think about the way we look at risk in terms of the way we do our work. I was also hugely inspired by our hubs and hearing from them and the sessions that I attended, the passion, the determination, and the progress. They are no longer an idea, they are real and already making huge and significant change. There is obviously a clear need for us to stay available to support them as they continue on their journey. But this assembly, they arrived as equals. There was drive and progression to talk about, and they really demonstrated that the vision of hubs is becoming a reality. I really was personally inspired and found myself smiling through so many of these sessions that were led by members of the hubs, and felt a real sense of pride in the achievements that they have made, especially when I saw founding hub members supporting and mentoring and offering their support and mentor, I should say, to aspiring hubs. And one wise piece of advice that I took from one of our hub leaders today is, don't do what you do for communities, do what you do with communities. And I really felt that spoke to the heart of what our hubs are trying to achieve, and specifically around our messaging around sort of preparing in advance. But the one thing that really blew me away during this session was our keynote speaker, Chenor. Wow. I just have to say, wow, what an inspirational man. I've watched and rewatched his session, and Chenor, you now have a new #1 fan. His experiences from so many perspectives, from a boy who was saved to a young man who was supported, and now to an adult who runs his own agency. He has seen the aid sector from all sides, and many would say he's actually benefited from it. However, that's maybe what makes his views so credible. He acknowledges the value of the aid sector, but also he's also acutely aware of its inequality and colonial ways. I loved the way he encouraged us to say no to resources that perpetuate a system that is no longer fit for purpose. That's something that's hard to do, but we must ensure we position ourselves to be able to be true to that need. We have to say no when we need to say no. I also really felt his push for us to be bold, and his encouragement for the START network to continue to open and facilitate these really difficult conversations and push us to a place where we're uncomfortable. And that is so important. He said, and I quote, "You succeed when you are no longer needed, but to achieve that, you need a plan." How many of us have that plan? And maybe that should be a takeaway for us all. Jenny Hodgson was our second keynote speaker, and if I'm honest, I've had less time to digest her messages, but there was a couple of key takeaways that I'm already starting to think on. And one of them was that communities do not want to be helped. They want to support themselves, they want support to help themselves. And I know Christina has more to say on this because she's had some time to do that. So overall, for me, it's been an incredible 3 days, and I've been incredibly proud to be a part of it. And but I know you're going to have some more highlights, so I'm passing to you.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, I mean, I think we are, as a network, as an organization, always one to be looking ahead, to be looking at the next challenge, at the next thing, without taking the time to take stock of what we've really made progress on. So I agree. I also took away a real sense of progress and achievement from this assembly, and starting with the hubs. Their leadership, their passion was palpable, and they were out in front on everything from governance systems to programs to gaining acceptance for their work in country. And just the fact that the Pakistan hub is already attracting 100 potential new members is a testament to its legitimacy in Pakistan, and that's just fantastic to see. It was also really exciting to see the motivation from our potential new hubs, South Sudan and Somalia. And, you know, as you were saying, Suzanne, about the mentorship starting to take place between the first sort of pioneering cohort of hubs and this new cohort that will be coming in. It was also interesting to hear from all the hubs on their views on the role of INGOs in the hubs, which I know is a conversation we've been having as a membership. That, you know, they see the role of INGOs as tapping into their competencies and creativity. They ask the INGOs not to magnify their risks and to use the unique space that INGOs have and occupy and their unique power to really to really be responsibly advocating for locally led action. I also thought we've made real progress in bringing together our financing tools under this family of funds in support of our network. You know, increasing interest, access, and actual funding to the Global Start Fund, to Start Fund Bangladesh, and to Start Fund Nepal, but also really being intentional about who is accessing those funds and why and how. As we talked a lot about, we launched Start Ready at COP26 as a real preeminent civil society mechanism to minimize the loss and damage resulting from climate risks and climate change, and also other humanitarian emergencies, by pre-positioning and using funds at scale ahead of predictable crises based on how local organizations identify and model risks. And I just think, you know, we have identified the climate crisis as a humanitarian crisis, and we need to do more to make anticipation a core part of humanitarian work. Like cash assistance before us, we need to get to the point where anticipation of predictable events becomes the default. We need to always be asking ourselves, why not anticipate? On the innovation side, we've been supporting community-led innovation through our CLIP program and also through the Resilience Labs, which we undertook with Complexity University and the Global Fund for Community Foundations. And I really enjoyed the ideas and prototypes coming out of places like Guatemala, Ghana, and the DRC for solutions to water scarcity, flooding, riverbank erosion, and coming up with more intuitive language for the concept of resilience. But, you know, in true Start Network style and in line with the Assembly's theme of changing mindsets and transforming systems, we did confront what are some enduring tensions in the network and sort of inherent to our evolution. As you were saying, Suzanne, we were challenged by two really excellent keynote speakers, and I agree with you that sort of the Chernor dared us to throw away those systems that perpetuate unequal power dynamics and accelerate those mechanisms that really bring power into balance. I think that's going to be hard for us as an organization that exists within that system. But we need to start thinking and planning about how we work ourselves out of existence, at least as the programmatic NGO network that we are today. But I also thought Jenny Hodgson was good, and mainly because of her experience in building a network, a movement from the ground up. And her insights from doing that over the past 15 years were really instructive for us. I mean, she also dared us to reimagine aid as trust building and not as a set of programs. As you said, to imagine aid recipients as co-investors and to imagine our grant making as asset creation and investment. So I think that gives us a lot of food for thought as to how we pitch ourselves to our membership and to the outside world. We also shared our frameworks for locally led action and decolonized programming, which were developed alongside our strategy refresh earlier this year. And the feedback from all of you from those sessions was way too many frameworks, leading to too many platitudes and too much distance between theory and practice. Just get on with it, is what we heard. Yes, I agree. Frameworks have a way of perpetuating a conversation at a conceptual level, but we haven't really found them useful internally for at least demanding that we see problems through a different lens. For example, in striving to be ethical and relational, as well as managerial and efficient, and including in the way that we collect evidence and monitor our programs. For defining locally led as who has power to frame the problem, to design the solution, to allocate the funds, and to make decisions along the way. And we hope that in developing these frameworks and really seeing these problems through a different lens, we are able to shift our own mindsets and those of our members, and in that way to keep that conversation alive. Suzanne, I don't know, were there any tensions for you in these discussions?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some of which you've already covered, but I mean, I think the thing that sort of stood out for me as well was that those conversations around governance and membership transitions, and seeing the struggle as we sort of grapple with where we sit, who we are, and how we exist in this new system, and in a way that of operating. It's so different to the way we are today. And it was great to see that members are really supportive, but some are also feeling quite unsettled by it. Some really excited, but definitely there is a real feeling of uneasy around the changes that we're about to see. And I feel that's exactly how we should feel. It's one thing I've learned since being at Start, that is, if I feel comfortable, I'm probably not doing something right. I should always be pushed to feel slightly like I'm doing something that's new, that's innovative, that's pushing the boundaries. So I think if it feels okay, we're probably not being radical enough. So the fact that we're all feeling uncomfortable, I think, is a really positive thing. And I think the other thing around organisational transformation, in my opening remarks, I mentioned that it was something that was the thing that I guess gave me some slight uncomfortable feelings, because it moves away from something that I've worked in for many years, from something that I'm very used to. And it sort of raised, I'm a solutions person, but for me, it picked out more questions than it answered. And it said, you know, it's things like, how do we unpick what a diverse network would need in the future? How do we create a model for the future that's efficient, cost effective, that's as local as possible, and as central as needed? Why are we trying to do this? What's the reasons for this? Are we trying to offer services? Is it solutions we want? Or are we just running ahead doing something without really identifying why we need to do it? And I think they're all really valid questions, but I think what came out of the build session today is that we need to move forward. We need to plan, we need to implement, and we need to be prepared to be agile and shift. And if we make mistakes, we need to be prepared to pick ourselves up and do things differently. The network is going to change, and we need to change with it. The network will develop and grow, and we need to change and develop and grow with it. And that doesn't mean necessarily by size. It sometimes just means by developing new systems and structures and different ways that, as Chenor said, may see us no longer required in certain aspects of our work. So I think that's really important. And I guess the other thing, there was a lot of take forwards for me as well from here, things that we really need to pick up and push forward on. And I think I have a little list here, so I'm going to read down this list just so I don't forget any of them. But I think that the most important things for us is really to continue to push to be locally led and make sure that that is actionable across all of our initiatives and programs, and that we use those frameworks, even if they are a little bit cumbersome, but they help us to make sure that we're doing things the way we want to do, and to develop and challenge our thinking when we initiate our programs. It gives us something to structure our thinking around. And also when we accept funds, you know, do they meet those criteria, or do we have to say no? So we need to continue to push. I think we work onwards with our work with Humanitarian to design this alternative approach to risk and accountability that sees a change in our ways of working from a pure due diligence framework to something that's very different. And instead of thinking about it as just pure compliance and risk, thinking about it in a way that focuses on building trust, well-managed systems, but also community accountability. We need to make sure that our programs, our start funds, and all of their mechanisms are accessible to smaller and local organisations, and that we align the way we work with their timelines and the way that they want to work, and we don't assume that our ways are the only ways. I think we need to continue to raise funds for members and for the anticipatory action that we have going at the moment, and accompany our partners and our hubs on their journey as they develop their risk models and begin operating our risk pool in March, hopefully, of next year. We need to continue to diversify our donor base And we've done such an incredible job and been so fortunate over the last 2 years of really seeing that come to fruition. And now we need to also focus our effort on decentralising those efforts and brokering relationships between our hubs and our funders. As I mentioned earlier, I think we need to do more on our governance design and membership process, and we're going to work with you guys to make sure you're comfortable, we bring you on this journey, and that we keep checking in with you to make sure you understand where this is leading. We need to build this sustainable model for both our business and finance, and also make sure that whatever our membership strategy looks like in the future underpins this emerging network of networks, which we are already seeing. And the final thing is through the organisational transformation. As I said, I think it's one of the trickier parts of what we do, because it really sees us having to work our way into something different. And we need to work through the stages of the plan that was presented today by Michelle and Helen in the build session. We'll be looking to create a prototype, and hopefully many of you will join us on that journey that we can test in 2022. And then we just need to accept with that we'll need to evolve and change. And we need to take positive steps forward without fear of failure. So those, I think, are the sort of actions and my slightly uncomfortable moments from the assembly. But I guess, Christina, it'd be really good to hear your final thoughts on how everything's gone over the last 3 days.
Yeah, no, thanks, Suzanne. I think, your language has been about change, discomfort, transition, and all of these words mean that we bring the entire membership along with us on this. It's bad enough, or it's hard enough for us as a team. And then we have 55 members that we also have to look after. So I think the key to making all this work is engagement, and engagement with all of you. You, our members, you feed our energy, our ambition, you drive us. You are an important stakeholder. Your constant positive engagement is what will get us over the line on many of these initiatives. We already do appreciate the engagement that we get from you. You're part of our board, you're part of our committees, you're part of the Start Fund Rotas, and you engage in many of our initiatives, including being speakers and representing Start Network at global forums. And we really appreciate all of that. I think it's by advocating together and representing our ambition together is where we will be more heard. But in addition to the midterm AGM that I spoke about earlier, we will be convening a bunch of member consultations around some of those stickier questions and stickier issues on transformation and change. And we ask you to really proactively engage in those discussions and continue to play the role of critical friend, because that's what we need you for. Another thing we'd like to try to do is, as I was saying before, we've gotten all used to these virtual convenings and these virtual events, and then in many ways, convening virtually is really it's really been great for our ability to convene large groups of people from all over the world. But we also recognize the value of being together physically in a room where we can sit and mull over ideas and build, learn, and explore together. So our aim is to hold the next assembly, the 2022 assembly, in person. And in the past, we've been graciously hosted by some of our members in Qatar and The Hague. So we are taking offers for hosting for 2022. If you are interested, members, please get in touch. So I guess that's all. That's where we leave it. And I just wanted to say thank you to our hubs, to our members, to our trustees, to our speakers. You have made this assembly the insightful set of conversations that it's been. But I would be remiss if I forget to thank, on behalf of me and Suzanne, our heartfelt thanks to our talented Start Network team, who were just impressive in all of their insights and all of their organization and all of the energy they brought to all of these sessions. And in that, a special thanks to Helen James, Antigone Matianaki, Mo Limo, Zofia Petrovic, and Verity Lindley, who created dynamism and pizzazz and buzz in a series of virtual meeting rooms, which is a heroic act in and of itself. So yeah, we leave that there. The video recordings of all of our sessions will be available online shortly, and please listen to them, go over them, and share them. Those are for public sharing, for public consumption. We'll also be sending out an online survey tomorrow, so look out for that. It would be really good to get your feedback, both on the format and the content of our sessions over these past few days. And for those of you who are assembly reps, we will be sending out sort of the official record of the AGM next week, so look out for that too. But otherwise, thanks to all of you. Thanks for taking the time, for spending the time, and thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.